Let us discuss the dealing with construction permits indicator. And in the course of my presentation, I'll cover the importance of the indicator and what falls under the scope of the indicator, as well as the main findings of the Doing Business 2019 report. And then we'll look at the good practices and the Azerbaijan performance on the indicator. So why does the dealing with construction permits matter? And why is it important to have sound regulations in this area? In case there are faulty or lacking regulations, if the procedures are too complicated or costly, in many cases builders tend to go ahead with construction without having any permits. And in fact, in 60 to 80% of building projects in developing countries, builders do not have proper authorizations and approval, and this is a major problem. Whereas, on the other hand, having sound regulations of construction in place can bring such benefits as it can help strengthen the property rights, it can protect the public from faulty practices being used in the construction sector, and it also contributes to the process of capital formation. And on the whole, naturally, the sound and strong construction regulations matter for businesses when they choose where to establish their business and where to operate. The indicator covers the following issues. The indicator measures the number of procedures, time and cost required to legally build a warehouse, and it also evaluates the building quality control. And we'll look at these points in more detail. In terms of number of procedures, as in other indicators, it is considered as any interaction of our internal employees with any external party, whether it is municipality, inspectors, utilities, and among others. And in terms of time, it is recorded in calendar days, and it captures the median duration of each procedure. The costs, on the other hand, are recorded as the percentage of the warehouse value, and in terms of building quality control, it assesses the quality of building regulations and its implementations. We will look at the building quality control in more details as we go forward. The assumptions that are used for the case study of the dealing with construction permits indicator is that the construction company is a limited liability company. It is 100% domestically and privately owned, has 5 owners, and none of whom is a legal entity. It is fully licensed and authorized to ensure to carry out construction projects. It has 60 builders and other employees, all of them are nationals. The warehouse will be used for general usage, such as storing books, and it has 2 stores located on a plot of land which is 929 square meters, and it's located in the economy largest business city. In our case, it is Baku. And the water and sewage connections are 150 meters from the existing water source and sewer tap. In terms of different stages of the construction process, the indicator evaluates the phase before construction. In this phase, we look at building plans, site maps, all necessary clearances, licenses, permits, and certificates that are to be obtained prior to construction. Then we come to the phase of construction itself, and here we evaluate all the required notifications, requests, and all necessary inspections that are to be received during the stage of construction. And in the same vein, the phase after construction, we check what has to be done to register the warehouse, to obtain certificate of completion, occupancy permits, and etc. And another part that is incorporated in the indicator is utilities. We also measure all the interactions with utilities if they are required in order for obtaining the building permit, the construction permit. And now let's look in more detail on the Building Quality Control Index and what it measures. So first of all, there is quality of building regulations, and then we measure quality control during the 3 stages of construction: before, during, and after construction. And another component is liability and insurance regimes. And last but not least is the professional certifications, and we'll look at them in more detail now. So 2 points on the Building Quality Control Index can be scored on the clarity and accessibility of regulations, where we measure how easily accessible the building regulations are and how clearly specified the requirements for obtaining a building permit are. Yet another 1 point can be scored on quality control before construction, whether the licensed architect or licensed engineer is a part of the committee or team that reviews or approves building permit applications, and this person also can refuse, have a say in refusal of the application. 3 points can be scored on quality control during construction, and here we look at whether inspections are mandated by law during the construction process, what type of inspections there are, whether they are unscheduled, whether there are inspections at different stages, or there are risk-based inspections. And we also look at whether inspections during construction are implemented in practice. This whole can give us 3 points maximum. In terms of quality control after completion of construction, again 3 points. We look whether final inspection is mandated by law in order to verify that the building was constructed in accordance with the approved plans and existing building regulations. And we also look whether the final inspection is always implemented in practice. In terms of liability and insurance, there are 2 components. First is whether any parties involved in the construction process are legally liable for latent defects, and whether any party involved in the construction process are legally required to obtain any latent defect liability insurance. And this can give us in total 2 points, 1 for liability and 1 for insurance. And the last component is professional certifications. And here we look at the qualification requirements for the professional in charge of verifying the plans and the professional supervising construction on site and conducting inspections. And again, the total we can get here is 4 points. And if you have specific questions later on, we can get into details of the specific components of the Building Quality Control Index. So now let us look at the main findings of the Doing Business 2019 report. And let's look at the top 10 performers. As we can see, the cohort is led by Hong Kong, China, and the top 10 performers come from different parts of the world, so from different regions. And Azerbaijan currently is ranked number 61 on dealing with construction permits. And here you can see the comparator economies from the region, Europe and Central Asia, and how those countries are ranked. On the whole, it takes an average 150 days to complete construction permitted process globally, with the fastest performance observed in Korea, where it can be completed within 27.5 days. And on this heat map, you can see the countries that are darker in color. The construction permitting processes are slower there compared to countries which are lighter in color. So Azerbaijan was one of the top improvers in 2017-2018, but we'll look at the detailed performance of Azerbaijan later. Besides Azerbaijan, one of the top improvers was China on this indicator. For example, China implemented a unified platforms for all building review processes, and it also simplified documentation requirements, which brought the country to rank number 121. And in a similar way, in Turkey, increased the transparency of its building regulations by publishing online all pre-application requirements, and it also imposed stricter qualification requirements for professionals in charge of approving architectural plans, which brought the country to rank number 59. And other countries from Europe and Central Asia also reformed in the area of dealing with construction permits. And as I mentioned, Azerbaijan improved the construction permitting process by enhancing and upgrading the single window. And in the same way, in Belarus, upgraded and streamlined the process at the one-stop shop, whereas Kosovo streamlined the inspection system, and Macedonia made the process of obtaining construction permits less costly. Russia reduced the time required to obtain construction permits. Same did Serbia, reduced the time to obtain construction permits, and Turkey increased the transparency of its building regulations. And in terms of the areas or features of the reforms, we can trace and see the following areas. Some countries reduced the time for processing permit applications, such as Azerbaijan, Botswana, China, among others. Some other countries streamlined procedures. Again, we have Azerbaijan and China and Salvador and Greece, among others. Côte d'Ivoire, Gabon, Ghana adopted new building regulations, and Mauritania, Sri Lanka, etc. improved transparency. Some countries reduced fees. Again, we have Azerbaijan, we have Cambodia and China and Gabon here. And other countries streamlined the operations of the one-stop shops and improved or introduced electronic platforms or online services. And let us now look and go through the good practices in the indicator, and we'll also look in more detail at the performance of Azerbaijan. So as I mentioned, last year the country was one of the two top improvers on the indicator, and the score increased from 60.48 to 73.11, and in DB 2019 the country is ranked 61. The number of procedures decreased by 1 from 19 to 18, and the time decreased significantly from 196 days to 116 days. The cost of obtaining construction permits also saw the reduction from 6.6 to 1.9%, and building quality control remained unchanged. And as we discussed earlier, the major reform that was implemented was introducing the single window approach to obtain construction permits, and this allowed investors to use the single window at the Baku City Executive Authority to obtain construction permits and not go to any other authority. On the Building Quality Control Index, Azerbaijan stands compared to other economies in such a way that it is on par with the Europe and Central Asia score with 12 out of 15 points, whereas other countries, other comparator economies, such as Bulgaria and Russia, score 14 points, whereas Poland scores 10 and Romania scores 13 points. Here is the list of the 18 procedures that are currently required to obtain a construction permit. We will not go through each of them. If you have specific questions, we can get back and address them. So as you can see, some procedures take significant number of days. Some procedures, mostly inspections, are done within 1 day. Some procedures are done free of charge, where some procedures incur certain cost. And now let's discuss the performance of Azerbaijan on Building Quality Control Index. On the first component, Quality of Building Regulations Index, the country scores maximum 2 points for having accessible laws and regulations, and for quality control before construction, the country scores again the maximum 1 point. Regarding quality control during construction, Azerbaijan scores 2 out of 3 points. And here on the question what type of inspections are required by law to be carried out during construction, the score of country is 1 out of 2 possible points. The Quality Control After Construction Index is again the maximum point. And regarding the Liability and Insurance Regime Index, Azerbaijan does not score any point, and the maximum number of points that can be scored is 2. So for both sub-indices of this component, there is no point scored. Whereas Professional Certification Index, the score obtained by Azerbaijan is maximum. Now let's look at the good practices, internationally recognized good practices. And these include having risk-based system in place that allow treatment of buildings according to their risk group. Another good practice would be having a coherent body of rules that defines what is required from builders and ensures a uniform implementation. Improvements on the organization of the review process by better coordinating the efforts of different agencies is considered another good practice that can be implemented and that can lead to improvement in dealing with construction permit process. And now we'll look at several examples of good practices in various countries globally. For example, New Zealand managed to set rules and ensure that they're clear and coherent by choosing an effective approach where there are performance-oriented building codes which set technical standards and targets, but they do not regulate how those targets are achieved, allowing for innovation and flexibility in building techniques. In the United Kingdom, the country managed to improve transparency and facilitate access to regulations by providing an online portal where all the legislation and all the building codes and all the requirements are available online on that portal. And we have an example of Azerbaijan among the countries which have good practices in place. And this is ensuring building quality control and safety mechanisms are in place. Due to the Urban Planning and Construction Code adopted in 2012, it allowed consolidated construction regulations into single framework that covers everything from issuance of building permits to inspections of construction, qualification requirements for construction professionals, and the issuance of occupancy permits. Yet other examples of good practices can be observed in Rwanda, where the country managed to differentiate projects by risk and adopted a risk-based approach in 2017. And this approach provides specific guidance on inspections by type of buildings in relation to their anticipated risks and the complexity of construction projects. And this significantly simplified the process of obtaining construction permits for less complex buildings. And another example is Singapore, which introduced one-stop shop to improve coordination and increase efficiency of construction permitting process. And the electronic system introduced in 2013, has streamlined the process for building permission professionals to request and obtain several approvals from different authorities through one integrated platform.